30 seconds.
Holding gets around in front.
And Philadelphia has it.
And a very good morning, everybody. Welcome to Trending in the AM right here on DSM Media. We're live, as always. You know the drill. Like, share, retweet, follow on all social media platforms. Make sure you do me a favor. Head over to the DSM Media YouTube page. Hit the like and subscribe button there. Turn the notifications on. We're growing that channel. We're at 708 now. We were at 710. I guess we had two bots, and we lost 2 subscribers over the weekends. But 708, huge growth there. Would love to continue to grow that. Oh, let's get it to 1,000 before the Eagles reach that Super Bowl, which is going to happen. We're going to get into that here as we go. It's also the YouTube page, the best place to get interactive with the show, to drop your comments, thoughts, concerns, as we dive into the Eagles playing the Giants on Saturday night, 8:15. Good morning, Joe. How you doing, my man? Jason, I know you had a rough day yesterday, but overall, weekend speaking, what did you think? We're going to get into the Eagles, Giants in a second. We'll get into each game specifically. But what did you think of the overall package of how this NFL wildcard weekend went out? Because I think we thought there was going to be a lot of blowouts this weekend. And there were some really close, good football games. There were some blowouts, but there were also some good games. Were you excited this weekend? Did you enjoy watching football this weekend?
I mean, I did enjoy it overall. I have to say I was a little bit surprised at some of the outcomes. Obviously, right. We did our prediction show on Friday, and I think a certain individual may have got one right on. But yeah, I mean, I think the overall body of work, yeah, I mean, there was some very exciting games. I mean, to me, I think the 2 games really that stood out, I didn't get to see the Dolphins Bills game, and so I probably would have had that one as being my biggest surprise, because obviously the Dolphins really had a real legit shot at winning that. And, it's kind of unfortunate, obviously if you're a Miami fan, that they didn't. Right. But I think that, the best game that I actually was able to watch, I wouldn't say best because it was sloppy, but the craziest game was obviously that Chargers-Jaguars game. But probably the best game was the Minnesota Vikings versus the Giants, because that was the game I was really in tuned on.
Yeah, that you knew that game, depending on how that game played out, how that game played out would affect how the Eagles, next week opponent would play out. I think you're spot on. I think there were a lot of exciting games. The Jacksonville Chargers game being the 8:00 game, and done work, late at night sitting there watching the game. It was exciting. It was fun to see Doug Peterson's team not give up. It was fun to be proven correct that Justin Herbert's just not clutch all the time. Maybe part of that's, Mr. Staley's, coaching. The 49ers game against the 49ers game against the Seahawks, I know it was a blowout, but I kind of feel like that game was closer than the score let on, because early in that game, for the first half of that game, it was a pretty close nail biter back to back. And maybe we'll get into it in a little bit more detail. But the Giants-Vikings game, yeah, I mean, my biggest surprise was probably how close the Buffalo-Miami game, but Vikings, man, I really thought the Vikings were going to take it to the Giants. I just didn't buy the Giants as legit playoff winners. And I don't know if that's because the Giants are a good team or it was just another Minnesota choke job. And I'm continually leaning towards that it was more a Minnesota choke job than the Giants winning that football game. Not to take anything away from the Giants. They played well. Daniel Jones played well. But Minnesota, again, Kirk Cousins, again, just coming up small in the big moments. At some point, the Minnesota franchise has to think about moving on from Kirk Cousins. And the Vikings defense is garbage. I mean, the Daniel Jones had over 70 yards rushing in that game, I believe. 78 yards rushing. I mean, when your quarterback's your leading rusher, when your quarterback's Daniel Jones and he's your leading rusher, that's not good for the Vikings defense there. Kirk Cousins looking like a modern day Sam Bradford. I don't know. I might take at this point, Joe. I might take Sam Bradford over Kirk Cousins. I don't know. What are your thoughts? Do you think it's a little bit of both the Giants and the Vikings, or is it just the Vikings just another choke job from Kirk Cousins?
Yeah, I think in my where I'm at right now, it's kind of in the middle. I do think the Giants are extremely improved. Brian Dable, a lot of people have been saying that he should be coach of the year. I know, Doug Peterson has to be in the conversation. Sirianni has to be in it because
Yeah, I mean, come on, let's not forget about Sirianni
well,
here.
well, that's what I mean. But I guess in general, I'm
I get
looking
what
at
you're saying.
what the Giants have done, kind of in that short term, span, improving that team, not just on the field, but how they play. Because I recent history, the Giants were just terrible all the way around. Like they just weren't that talented on the field. They didn't have a lot of talent, talented players, and their coaches were just, let's use the word boneheads.
Yeah.
I think if you look at this team, the Giants, Dable has them believing in themselves, and you can see that. And I think a lot of times, if you have a good coach, he can almost get more out of his players than they really would get out of just an average coach. And I think that's what it's going on here. I think
you bring up a really interesting point there because the coach is getting a lot out of their players. Because I put out a tweet on Saturday morning or Saturday afternoon. I know you saw it. Just think of the names that played quarterback this weekend in football: Daniel Jones, Brock Purdy, Huntley from Baltimore. I'm trying to think of them off the top of my head. Skylar Thompson. I'm looking at all these names. Geno Smith. I mean, if you look at it, I know everyone says that the Eagles and Jalen Hurts, it was a system situation. It obviously isn't. We've learned that, but culture and great coaching can go really far in the playoffs. Because you think of it, Geno Smith was in that game for a while. Brock Purdy, a third stringer, won a game. Daniel Jones, who a lot of us trash all the time, won a football game. Tyler Huntley, the Baltimore Ravens were one play away from tying that game up and sending it to overtime. Skylar Thompson, and those Miami Dolphins almost beat the Buffalo Bills. I mean, great quarterback play is obviously important, but a great culture and a great coach and a great system is as important almost to an extent, right?
Yeah, and I think
you have to be upper echelon great coach and system. It can't be an okay system with an okay quarterback. But if you've got that great culture, you can elevate your quarterback a little bit.
100% spot on. I don't think you can. I don't think it's a coincidence that Brian Dable comes to the Giants and all of a sudden Daniel Jones is better than adequate. Like, right. I would look at Daniel Jones and say, I don't think anybody's sitting here saying that Daniel Jones will ever be an elite quarterback in the NFL. Right. He's not. He's not that kind of guy. But what I did see this year with Daniel Jones was a lot of growth. Right. He's a lot better at reading, defenses. He had a balanced year. I mean, he only threw for a little over 3,000 yards. Okay. But, you look at that and you say, well, what could Daniel Jones do if he got a wide receiver? Because just right here in the Eagles, we go and get A.J. Brown and Jalen Hurts, like his numbers go insanely better. So I'm not sitting here saying that, as Kyle said, that Jones will ever be elite. But
Saquon says it. Saquon must be smoking something on the side because I don't know if I could ever put the words elite. But it goes to show if you have that great culture. I mean, look, I thought the Giants were going to be better this year. I didn't think they were going to make the playoffs better this year, but I thought throwing Brian Dable in there was going to make them a better team. And now the Giants have a tough decision to make whether they're going to how long they're going to commit to Daniel Jones and how this Eagles Giants, because let's stick to that Giants game and use it to kind of transition to Eagles. What's up, my man? How you guys doing over at Ref the District? Rough end for Washington Commanders season. So actually, if you're still on there, who will you root for as a Washington Commanders fan? The Eagles or the Giants? Like, who do you hate more? It's you got 3/4 of the NFC East out of the final 4 teams in the NFC. I think that's a pretty crazy thing there. So looking at this Eagles-Giants pairing, sticking on the Giants side of it, the Giants have a tough decision to make with Daniel Jones. How do you think they've already mentally made their decision, or do you think that how he performs in this game can change it? Because if that's the case, Daniel Jones is playing confident football right now. If he's got that pressure of what's next on his mind, he might try his best to ball out even more than he normally would be. It kind of gives you that extra little motivation. You know what I'm getting at, Jason?
I do, Phil, but I think where I stand on that, because my philosophy and I've been saying it for years, that everyone's chasing the next. I always use Mahomes because he's the guy.
Yeah, or Burrow.
Everybody's
chasing the next Jalen Hurts now.
In reality, how many quarterbacks will ever really get to that level? Probably not many. So if I'm the Giants, I think Daniel Jones is the perfect quarterback for them, because I think at this point, what you have now. I think now you go out and you go to the next level. You go and you get that wide receiver one, like all these other teams have done.
Well, they already tried that with Kenny Galladay, and that obviously that was the old regime brought him in.
Yeah, but when I look at Kenny Galladay, I don't ever look at, and nor did I ever look at him as being a real wide receiver one. Like to me, Kenny Galladay was a guy that really wasn't. He was projected off of what he did one good season that he had. And a lot of people were saying he was like mini Calvin Johnson or whatever the comparisons were. Like, to me, I look at like if they really want to get better, like I heard the name DeAndre Hopkins is definitely going to be on the trade block. He would be a guy I think the Giants would be perfect for them, because DeAndre Hopkins is that kind of wide receiver that is like, he's a possession guy, but he could still go for deep. It's not like he's 40 years old. He had a decent year this year, coming back from, obviously, first he was injured, then the suspension. But he's a guy that I think if the Giants went out and got, you get a legit guy. And there's other ones. They
got to improve their offensive line as well. I think that's still, to me, I still think the offensive line of the Giants is one of the key points of that team, what makes them struggle at times. And I think it's an excellent point to jump into the Eagles part of it. Is I think it's the obvious part where the Eagles' defensive front can attack that Giants' offensive line. You look at it, the games the Giants have won this year, and you look at the Vikings game, Daniel Jones rushed for 78 yards. Daniel Jones has beaten the past. For as bad as Daniel Jones is, he's beaten the Eagles with his legs before. And I think our front, obviously, it's healthy. Josh Sweat very well could be back for Saturday night's game. And our front, specifically the front 5 guys that get to the quarterback, can dominate that Giants offensive line, and should be able to put pressure and get the pressure that makes Daniel Jones not. I mean, Daniel Jones against the Vikings, outside the 78 yards, he also threw for over 300, was 24-35 at a 114 passer rating. Our front 4 is so damn good that shouldn't happen, is basically my thought process. There's no reason why that should happen. I mean, when we beat the Giants 48-22 earlier this year, we had 7 sacks against Daniel Jones. 7 sacks. That's not a small feat. And let's see, even though it was a close game, we still had 2 sacks the last game of the year against them. So we've put up 9 sacks against this Giants offensive line in 2 games. So I really think that it's critical for the front 4 of the Eagles to really do the damage that they did the first meeting, to ensure it's not a close 22-16, nail biter game, that it's that dominating performance.
Well, let's be realistic. I think any person that has been watching the Eagles and watching the NFL in general, yes, it is a passing league, but where do the Eagles struggle most on defense? It's against the run. So if the Giants really want to have any legitimate shot at beating the Eagles, I think a smart game plan would be to run Barkley a lot. Like, he's healthy enough that he could do that. That is, to me, the only recipe that could be a disaster. If for some reason the Eagles, if for some reason Saquon starts running wild, we could be a little bit in trouble there, because that's
let's look at that, because I think it's a great point. But he rushed 9 times against the Vikings on Sunday for 53 yards. A good average. They didn't use him a lot. They rushed Daniel Jones. We get crushed for when Jalen Hurts runs a lot. Daniel Jones ran 17 times on Sunday. That's insane.
crazy.
But the Week 18 game against the Giants, which we just barely held on and won, obviously Saquon Barkley sat out, but they ran a heavy pass offense, 40-21 pass to run ratio. And then the big blowout earlier this season, you take away Tyrod Taylor's two big runs, because he was technically in mop-up duty, their leading rusher, 2 rushes for 40 yards. Saquon Barkley was held to 9 rushes for 28 yards that game. And they ran 22 times to 27 passes. So they tried to run against us in Week 13 or whatever that week was, but we were able to control them. And it's because of their if they had a really good offensive line, yes, Saquon has gotten healthy and has run the ball well this year. But for as bad as our run defense is, I don't think it's as bad as it's perceived to be, because the last 4 to 6 weeks we've been much better at it. And I don't think that the Giants' offensive line is good enough to be able to get those holes open for Saquon Barkley. I could not see him getting an 80 or 100-yard rushing game. I just don't think the offensive line is good enough to open that up against the Eagles. Now, against other teams, sure. But against the Eagles, I just don't think it's there.
See, that's where I kind of disagree, because I think the problem is, I think the reason that these teams don't get those type of games is they don't commit to the run.
Oh,
if
absolutely.
You're saying that he had 9 runs in both games, like that to me, I'm talking like 20 carries. Like if Saquon gets 20 carries, it's inevitable that one of those he's going to break through. That's the problem. I think
that's where it comes. I mean, if you look at it, game 1 when we played the Giants, I mean, we were blowing them out, so they couldn't commit to the run.
I get that. So that
weekend against the Vikings, they committed to the run, and I didn't watch the entire first play to last play. I was working throughout the game, but I was watching it, and I don't know if the game plan for having 9 runs and Daniel Jones having 17 runs, was it a lot of RPO action? I'm not positive. I'm not sure. So maybe the Eagles now see that 17 rushes from Daniel Jones. They focus in on that, in practice this week, and then that opens up more running opportunities for Saquon Barkley this week. I don't know, but I still think it'll come down to the offensive line. And to your point, the coaching staff committing to that run, but the offensive line still got to be able to block for them.
Yeah, and I guess my real point is that I'm just saying that unless the Giants do go to that route,
right,
I don't see a world where they can beat the Eagles. I think a lot of people are I don't want to say overhyping, but I use that word. I've been using it about Brock Purdy. That I just feel like everyone gets focused and ultra focused on the now. And it's like, okay, yes, the Giants are a much improved team. But to me, out of all the teams that we were going to face, if we had to face the Giants, the Buccaneers, the Dallas Cowboys, who just blew out the Buccaneers, or the 49ers, if we had to face any of those other teams, I'm wanting to face the Giants every day of the week. So I think we are getting the best matchup.
Absolutely. And I mean, and Joe checking and saying Gannon needs to stack the box and make Jones try and beat you. I think that's key, because look, I mean, Gannon's not going to stack the box. It seems obvious that that's what he should do, but Jonathan Gannon just will never stack a box. But you think about it, if you let Daniel Jones beat you with your arm, that means that you've really screwed the pooch, because their wide receiver core, we just said it, Kenny Galladay had 5 catches this year, and he's their high-priced wide receiver. I mean, they have no wide receivers on the Giants. If Bradbury and Slay cannot lock down Richie James and Isaiah Hodges and who else caught passes?
Slayton.
Darius Slayton. I mean, you look at it. I mean, if we can't, Galladay didn't even have a catch or a target on Sunday against the Vikings.
He had a block.
He had a block? He made a block?
Big block.
I saw the replay. I saw them hyping that. Look at that. If he's not going to throw the ball, at least he gets out there and runs. Yeah.
It's like J. Jaw Jr.
Yeah, exactly. He really, it's like Matt Collins. He really helps us on special teams. But that being said, those guys, if our quarterbacks can't lock those guys down, then, then that's all on them. There's nothing Gannon or anybody could do. But yeah, stack the box. Drew already calling it 34-14. And Kyle, yes, I heard this on the last week. He only needs 74 more catches for his performance bonus. That's it. Just 74 more. That's nothing. Hey, there's 3 more games left in the year. If they made it all the way to the Super Bowl, maybe he can get 74. Yeah, no, I'm just kidding.
He's going
All right, so Drew's jumping right in to a prediction at 34-14. Obviously, we're not giving our predictions yet. It's way too long. We're going to be talking Eagles-Giants all week long. The narrative, Jason, of playing the same team 3 times, and it's very hard to beat a team 3 times in a season. Now, my man Chris Romanelli, he's been on the show a bunch of times. He's a season ticket holder, part of their advisory board. He put on his Facebook page earlier this weekend that the 17 times that a home team has faced their opponent twice in the regular season, they are 12-5 against that team. So I kind of want to just bring out the fact that I don't think that 3 times a year narrative is a valid argument or discussion point. And I know you're going to hear it all over ESPN and all the national media sites. They're going to talk that the Giants have a chance because it's their 3rd time playing them. Me personally, well, yeah, Joe, we're going to get into this next. But yeah, as long as there is no reason that any narrative outside of health should cause this team to lose. Do you buy that, or do you get concerned when a team? I mean, obviously the Giants know this team inside and out. Do you get concerned at all?
I think that narrative is overblown. I think maybe in old school football that was true. I think in today's day and age where it's any given Sunday, I mean, like back in the day, let's face it, like when it was like the super big rivalries and all those teams were kind of close knit, you know what I'm talking about, like the NFC East. Like back then, the NFC East was a lot more close. Like I know this year the NFC East, every team was pretty good, but like I'm talking like comparisons, like talent wise, like there wasn't like this one upper echelon team in the division where every other team sucked every single year. Mm-hmm. I don't buy that narrative. I'm not saying that there's not something to it. Maybe in cases where, you know, it's outside opponents where a team just happened to face the team, you know, 2 times in the regular season, or maybe, you know, I don't know. I just think it's over.
Right. So something that I was thinking of, I think that it's overblown to an extent now also because, I mean, you think about it, it's a 17-game season now. There's 18 weeks. I mean, every game's different. I mean, you look at the Eagles when we played them week 13 versus when we played the Giants in week 18. They're 2 totally different teams. Come playoff time, 2 totally different teams. I mean, confidence levels, 2 totally different teams. There's so much that changes over the course of an NFL season. Players don't play 16, 17 games anymore. There's so many people coming in and out, so many moving parts that I don't worry about at all the third matchup. Look, the Giants are going to know if we were 1-1 or 2-0 or 0-2 against the Giants. The Giants know the Eagles. The Eagles know the Giants just as well. Everyone's like, well, the Giants know the Eagles because they've beaten them or lost them twice this year. Well, we've beaten them twice this year. There's nothing that they're going to do that we don't know at this point. And the amount of time that coaches put in, and this goes to Drew's part, that coaching is the only way they lose, you know, the amount of time and effort that coaches put in game planning and film watching and reviewing everything, it doesn't matter at this point. I think it's not only is it overblown, I think it's a moot point that doesn't, even though we're going to discuss it, it's going to be discussed all week long on all channels. I don't think it matters.
Yeah, I'm with you. I've heard it, you know, I see it on Twitter all day, like, oh, 13, you know, 3rd time. And I'm like, I just don't understand. I think playoff time, everything is different. Like, you know, the stakes are a lot higher. I mean, why did the Eagles get home field advantage? They didn't get home field advantage for nothing. Like,
yeah, they got it because they're and it's not like there's 2 teams that get a bye week. We're the only team in the NFC that got a bye week for a reason. Joe checking in, how about a spy on Daniel Jones? We talked about this a few weeks, maybe a little bit longer. I forget which game it was. I had Coach Dale Carlson on here. He's a Chicago native, a coach of 40 years of football coaching. And he said the spy term, and I really bought into it. I believe it to an extent. the overall spy thing is an outdated concept. Because if you think about it, the quarterbacks that you need to spy, and Daniel Jones, I mean, for as much crap as we give him, he is an extremely fast, mobile quarterback. I mean, you don't get 78 yards rushing without being a good running quarterback, and he's beaten us running the ball before. But a running mobile quarterback, Joe, normally, who spies normally? A linebacker. Most mobile quarterbacks nowadays are way faster than those middle linebackers that are going to spy. So you're not going to be able to, you just need to control the box. You need, instead of 4 guys, 5 guys, build like a little archway around the line and just blitz 5 guys. And Coach Dale Carlson mentioned that on the show, that you scheme like your box to keep them in the pocket versus wasting a defender, putting them there just to spy. So it's a different kind of a scheme than a spy, what the team should be running. And that's what you do against Daniel Jones. You put 5 guys in the box instead of 4. You keep a nice little archway. You keep them contained in that little, semicircle, and that's how you control Daniel Jones. Do you agree with that, Jason? I don't know if I ever brought that topic up with you, that the spy term is kind of an outdated concept in the NFL, but teams still do it a lot of the time.
I mean, obviously that guy's a coach, so he knows a lot more.
40+ years. I mean,
you and I
learned from Tommy Tuberville or whatever his name was, and he worked under Mike Leach a few times. I mean, the guy's a legend in the college and semi-pro coaching circles. So,
I mean, let's face it too. Like, so we want to go back in history. You had Randall Cunningham, who's basically like, I mean, obviously there was guys previous to him, but
right.
Randall Cunningham was legit the first. Like, obviously they called him the ultimate weapon. I mean, he was the first.
I remember that Sports Illustrated cover issue with the rocket arm and all.
Exactly. So he was the first guy.
Side note, don't you wish when you were a kid you saved all that stuff? So it could be worth like millions of dollars now. Like if you didn't open your toys, they'd be worth so much money now. I think I remember reading that Sports Illustrated and then throwing it away. I wish I would have kept it neat.
I do have a newspaper clipping saved, like a daily news actually, of Randall Cunningham. Believe it or not, it's like It's in my archives. It's like really faded and stuff, but yeah, I still have it. But like what I'm getting at is that then you kind of had the next era when you had Donovan McNabb, you had Michael Vick, you had a couple guys. If you look at the NFL now, it's like almost half the league has quarterbacks that are considered like mobile quarterbacks that are super athletic. Like, I mean, look,
it's probably more than half. There's probably about half the league has Jalen Hurts type, and probably another 10 have Aaron Rodgers / mobile guys that can run that don't run. I mean, you're not a quarterback. There's how many are Tom Brady's anymore or Eli Manning's?
Yeah, there's not too many statues back
even
there.
Even Joe Burrow for his knee injuries and stuff I mean, the guy could get out of the pocket and extend a play. Almost everybody can at this point. So I think that's a fantastic point by you there.
Yeah, and I think that's why it's a little different and why the spy is kind of outdated. Because I think the spy, that term came up when you had guys like Michael Vick, when there wasn't many doing it. So it was always like, okay, well, when you face Michael Vick,
you don't know how to stop it. You know what I mean? That's how we do it.
Yeah.
I think let's get into this injury because a couple of people have said things. Avonte Maddox does not. He doesn't seem to be trending in the right direction. He hasn't been ruled out, but he doesn't seem to be trending in the right direction. Like Lane Johnson, who we see videos of practicing and stuff. Jason, let's talk about that. Importance of injuries, our injured players being back as close to 100%. Obviously, it starts with Jalen Hurts. It starts with Lane Johnson. Obviously, Jalen Hurts is going to play. It's what level of Jalen Hurts are we going to get? Are we going to get week 18 against the Giants conservative, or do you think he's going to be healthy enough where the reins will be pulled back off the play calling and Shane Steichen will be able to call whatever play he wants, or are we going to have to be conservative with him still this week?
Listen, you were the one that brought it up. That was the one reason why you could lose, because it's almost like playing to lose. If you're going to play Jalen Hurts, if he's healthy enough to play, he has to be full board. He has to be. Listen, it's all or nothing now. It's the Super Bowl. Like, you're not going to get to the Super Bowl if you don't win this game. And yes, you have to take it one game at a time. I get that. But if Jalen Hurts is on that field, you need to let him rip. Let it rip. Let him play. Because that's the only way that they're going to do well in this playoff run. You cannot be conservative with a guy when his biggest like strength is his ability to get out of the pocket and make plays and extend plays.
Even all of his growth as a passer, and we agree, he has taken hundreds of leaps and bounds forward as a passer, right? I mean, there's no argument there. But a lot of his leaps and bounds as a passer still do come from his mobility because teams have to not spy per se, but they always have to worry that he is going to get out of the pocket and run. So that leaves guys like A.J. Brown wide open or single coverage, Dallas Goedert, which Dallas Goedert being healthy and being a bigger part of the game plan is, I think, a huge, huge thing this week. But overall, I agree with you. You got to let him rip. Let him rip 110%. No reins. Look, it's a pain tolerance thing. You got all week to manage the pain. If he's going to be in pain on Sunday, you got to play him full bore, like you said, and just let it rip because, look, you take it conservative. We almost lost to the Giants in Week 18 because of that conservative approach. The Giants' confidence level, I always talk about it. You know, that momentum, that confidence level of a team can elevate a B-plus player to an A-minus player. The Giants are confident right now. Daniel Jones is confident right now. Brian Daboll's got that entire team believing in themselves and that they're a winning team right now. Hell, we've seen the Giants organization make a run to the Super Bowl before as a wild card team. Was that the year they won against the Patriots or lost? I think they beat the Patriots. That they won a Super Bowl as a wild card team. So that city knows that they can get confident behind that team. And all those things combined lead to, you know, I say the Eagles. I joke that the Eagles are going to smash the Giants, but realistically speaking, if you let Jalen Hurts go full bore, there's no competition. If you keep those reins pulled back, you let the Giants stay in this game, who knows what happens?
Yeah, because at the end of the day, if it's a close game, as you said, all it takes is one mistake. I think the biggest key, like if you want my honest opinion, I think Lane Johnson obviously is,
that was the next step of it right there.
But I think Lane Johnson, I look at him as like, I look at it as a 60% Lane Johnson is better than what we've been getting.
60% is pushing it a little bit, but I get what you're saying.
I don't think he's going to be 60%.
Maybe
I think
63%.
Listen, I think if I know Lane Johnson, and the guy's a tough mother effer, like he is, and he's been through a lot. Like he's been through a lot with his mental health, and he's been through a lot with his personal life. The guy is going to be ready. I have no doubt in my mind. Like, everyone could say, "Oh my God, it's a serious injury." Yes, it is. Right. But he's going to play and gut it out because that's who Lane Johnson is. I do not think that it's going to affect him to the point where he's all of a sudden going to be like, go from being the best right tackle in football to sucking. The guy is going to be.
I think you're going to see better than 60% Lane Johnson. I think you're going to get more in that.
I was being a wise ass.
Yeah, I know you are. I think you're going to get close to 80-85% Lane Johnson, and that's perfect. I think the Eagles coaching staff will have more confidence letting it rip with Jalen Hurts if Lane Johnson's out there at 85% than letting him let it rip because, you know, Jack Driscoll makes one mistake. Jalen Hurts takes one hard hit too many. You know, they're going to have more confidence in Lane Johnson out there to not have to worry about Jalen Hurts. Does it make sense, the parallel that line I'm trying to draw? Lane Johnson being out there directly influences the coaches and how they play call with Jalen Hurts.
It makes 100% sense. And then couple that with the fact that you have Jalen Hurts, like, you know, even last week when they're like, oh, give you the day off, and it was Monday, and Hurts was like, no, I want to go over video. You know that this guy is a man possessed. He remembers last year. You think, who do you think remembers the most? Not us fans. We were upset when the Eagles lost that playoff game. But who do you think remembers it the most? And who do you think it hurts the most and wants to redeem himself?
Do you think there's anything in Jalen Hurts' mind that after this weekend he's a little disappointed because he probably really wanted to play Tom Brady and the Buccaneers?
I mean,
deep down inside, I truly think he holds that kind of chip on his shoulder and that he wanted to be the guy that ended time. Look, I'm speculating Tom Brady, maybe he calls it a career, maybe he doesn't. But Jalen Hurts wants to end his career, not let Dak, his division rival, Dak Prescott and the Cowboys do it. Deep down inside, I bet you Jalen Hurts is like, damn it, I really wanted Tom Brady again. Which 99.9% of quarterbacks and football teams would not want to see Tom Brady in the playoffs. I mean, he is literally the greatest quarterback of all time. And nobody would want to see him, but Jalen Hurts probably would because of that chip on his shoulder, that intangible, that never good enough is never good enough. You know what I mean? And I kind of really do truly believe that. And maybe that's why I picked picked games this weekend, because I was kind of thinking the same way with Jalen Hurts.
I picked the same thing, Phil. So I was way off. I mean, the Cowboys throttled them, but who knows? I don't know. I said it.
I mean, could we see a scenario? And I think there's a real possibility. Probably not, but it's obviously set up where we have to go through the Giants and the Cowboys to get to the Super Bowl.
I mean, why couldn't
what kind of story? Can you imagine the storyline that we had to go through our division twice or a third time to get to the playoffs? I mean, or get to the Super Bowl. I think it's a Philadelphia storyline made for the ages right there.
I mean, listen, I didn't think that Dallas would come out and play well. I've been saying that in my opinion, that they're overrated. But how can you look at, what they went 35-14? How can you look at that game and the way that they beat the Buccaneers and say they're overrated? Now, maybe the Buccaneers just aren't that good, and maybe we expected a better Tom Brady.
I think that's part of it. I think we overrate the Buccaneers. The Buccaneers, we gave the Buccaneers credit because Tom Brady is Tom Brady. But honestly, if you've watched any Buccaneers games this year, that offense is stale, a lot of dump offs. They don't stretch the field. Their offensive line banged up. Their defense, I mean, they were supposed to, coming into the year, be one of the best defenses in the league. They weren't. Todd Bowles, look, no offense to Todd Bowles, but he's a really good defensive coordinator. He's a terrible head coach. There's already rumors floating around that they've already fired Byron Leftwich, their offensive coordinator. So he's already the one that's going to fall on the sword for the disappointment, which it's a shame. You make the playoffs and it's a disappointment, but I guess when you're Tom Brady, and team that's used to success and a player, somebody's got to fall on the sword. So I think we just overvalued. I don't think I don't think it's all Giants that beat the Vikings. It was the Vikings choking. I don't think Dallas smoked the Buccaneers as much as people do. I think it's partially that, but partially that they went up against an 8-9 team. That's an inferior team that barely won the NFC South over the Carolina Panthers, the Atlanta Falcons, and the New Orleans Saints. You kind of got to take that into account a little bit there. So look, I'm not trying to bash the Cowboys. We'll have plenty of time to do that, but it's kind of like you kind of got to take the whole picture into the equation there.
So with that being said, I'll ask you a question.
Yeah.
Has Dak, with this performance in that game, silence his critics?
No, I mean,
do you think that Dak Prescott is unfairly?
You can't say one game silence critics.
Okay,
you can say step in the right direction, but you can't say it completely does it.
So let me go one step further. Do you think Dak is unfairly criticized, especially in this town? Like, because we're Eagles.
I'm a Dak Prescott guy. If he was on any team in the NFL outside of the Cowboys, Washington, and the New York Giants, outside the NFC East, if he was on any team outside the NFC East, I'd probably own a Dak Prescott jersey. I'm a huge fan of the guy. I think he's unfairly criticized. I think because he plays in Dallas, Dallas doesn't want the 8th best quarterback in football. They want the number 1 quarterback in football. Dallas doesn't want to be a contending team. Dallas is still living on their 90s success and think they're a Super Bowl team every year. I think the undue pressure playing for the Cowboys elevates the expectations. And let's be honest, I'm not a fan of Mike McCarthy. I think if there was a different coach there, that team is always in turmoil in the front office, the coaching. There's always something outside of the actual play on the field that's distracting that team. Jerry Jones, obviously the biggest distraction of them all. I think Dak Prescott in any other city, you just take the name Dallas Cowboys off. Everything else stays the same. The results, the stats, everything else. You just put any other team's name on there, Dak Prescott isn't criticized the way he is. That would be my personal opinion.
No,
Because he's a borderline top. He's like an 8, 9, 10, 11 quarterback in football. But because he plays for Dallas, the criticism and the expectations are higher.
I mean, I have to agree with you. I think because I see so many Eagles fans, like especially on Eagles Twitter, that like just bury Dak Prescott, and it's like, I get it. A lot of times it's because their fans are going at Jalen, and it becomes like a pissing match. But like, when I look at Dak Prescott,
Cowboys in the championship game just for the social media, fun that it would create for a week.
Oh my God, it's going to be in a zoo. It's going to be crazy. If the Cowboys
going against the Giants this week, I could just imagine if next week we have to face the Cowboys.
If the Cowboys beat the Niners and we beat the Giants, it's going to be bananas in this town. Like, when was the last NFC Championship? 1980 against Dallas.
Yeah, I mean, but you know what? I want to just stop that conversation right there because you know what? I don't want to look ahead to Dallas and the game. This Giants team, like I've already said, they're playing super confident right now. Their confidence is sky high. I don't know when they announce the Coach of the Year. Brian Dabble if he wins Coach of the Year before the game starts. I don't know when they give that award away. I mean, it'll just boost them up a little bit more. Look, I don't want to look past this Giants team. As Casey says, game will come down to coordinator. Please take what the defense gives you, get the stars the ball, and run the ball. Absolutely agree with you on that. The Cowboys will forever be under the microscope. Exactly what I'm saying. So, like Casey says here, it's going to come down to a coordinator either having a great game or making a mistake on either side of the ball. And I want to save this conversation for tomorrow about the coordinators, but both that's the Cowboys, the Eagles coordinators and the Cowboys coordinators spend a lot of time doing interviews, for other head coaching jobs. We'll dive into that tomorrow, but if a coordinator makes a mistake, that could be the difference. The Eagles, I'm confident the Eagles win on Sunday or Saturday night against the Giants. I'm confident the Eagles win big. But if we look past the Giants, if the players look past the Giants, this could easily turn into, we get back to the rest of the games. Look at what Miami did to Buffalo. Everybody, including us, had blowouts on the Buffalo side. The DeMar Hamlin situation was going to give you an emotional lift, and you're just going to smoke the third string Skylar Thompson, Miami Dolphins. That game was as close of a game as you can have again, hold on. Let me pull up that box score real quick here. Box score. Skylar Thompson was 18 of 45. 18 of 45 throwing the football. 2 interceptions. I think he fumbled. He did not fumble the ball. Josh Allen did. A good coach team can shock somebody in the playoffs. I mean, if Skylar Thompson almost beating the Bills doesn't tell you, if I'm Nick Sirianni today or yesterday, I'm like, yo, guys, look what Buffalo almost did. We need to stay focused this week on the Giants. And I think it is so important for us to stop worrying about next week, focus on this week, because like you said at the beginning of the show, any given Sunday, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think his track record shows that he's had that team for the most part. I mean, we've had a few slip-ups, but for the most part, this team has been very well coached by Nick, the head coach. Now, have the coordinators made some mistakes? Quite a few. Have they been, up and down as far as our love and hate? Absolutely. But I think at the end of the day, I look at it as Nick Sirianni and Jalen Hurts, to me, are the two most important, because
I mean, you look at it. So like that Buffalo game, they only ran the ball for 42 yards. Miami, 20 rushes for 42 yards, and like I said, 18 of 45 passing the ball. But Buffalo took them for granted. Josh Allen had 2 interceptions, fumbled the ball 3 times, lost one of them. A game defense. I just said I would be focusing in on that as Nick Sirianni and Jalen Hurts to the rest of the team. If I'm the Giants, I'm focusing in on that too. Like, look, the Dolphins almost won with Skylar Thompson. We got Daniel Jones, we got Saquon Barkley, and I'm a better coach than Mike McDaniel. We can win this game. That turnover, come down to the coordinators, as KC said here. One mistake, one bad play call that results in an interception, one bad line scheme that results in a sack fumble, from Jalen Hurts. Like that, the game could change.
I firmly believe that in football, momentum can change a game on one play. Because I watched that 49ers Seahawks game, and I saw the Seahawks driving. They would have went ahead with a touchdown, and Geno Smith got a sacked fumble. Bosa, I think, recovered the fumble. And after that, the lights just went out. Like, it was almost like I really, at that point, was believing, oh, my God, the Seahawks are going to beat the Niners. And then the Niners just blew them out the rest of the game. And everyone wanted to say, oh, we blew them out. But, like, that game, like you said, Earl, you said it first thing in the show, that game was a lot closer than the score.
I mean, the Seahawks were winning at halftime. That tells you it was a close game at one point. But then, and they were only down, hold on, let me do the math here. They were only down 6 points at the end of the third quarter.
That's the play. That's what I'm talking about. And Geno Smith was driving.
It's confidence. It's turn. I mean, we talked about it with the Phillies in the playoffs. That bringing up one specific moment, Reese Hoskins and his errors in the playoffs. When you get to the playoffs, mistakes are amplified. You have to be crisp and ready to go, not looking forward to next week, because turnovers are mistakes, and turnovers in the playoffs can become amplified. Seattle lost that game because of a turnover, multiple turnovers, but that one specifically. Buffalo almost lost to a third-string quarterback because of massive. I mean, let's be honest. Josh Allen, one of those interceptions wasn't fully on him. It bounced off the chest of, I think it was Cole Beasley, and it literally hit him square in the chest. Maybe it was thrown too hard and into too tight a coverage, but hit the guy in the chest, and it popped out for an interception. But, I mean, that one fumble that Josh Allen had where he was being sacked and he was loosely throwing the ball, that was a mental lapse from Josh Allen. I mean, if Jalen Hurts had a game, even in a winning moment, like Josh Allen had, oh, my God, the Eagles critics would be, oh, Jalen Hurts turns the ball over. Jalen Hurts doesn't protect the ball. Everyone's just talking about how Josh Allen, held the team together instead. But if that was Jalen Hurts, the critics would be all over the place. Turnovers come from sloppy play, not being focused, not being motivated, not being prepared the right way. So that's why it's so important to be prepared and motivated this week, not looking forward.
Yeah, we can't have a slow start. Like, if the Eagles win the toss, I hope they take the ball. Like,
that won't happen.
I know it won't, but
that I've been pushing for that theory all year long that teams defer way too often.
I'm looking at the link crowd. It's going to be insane. 8:15 game. There's late playoff games, especially like down there.
Think about it. The lots. I mean, people are going to be down there from 7 a.m. tailgating for an 8:15 Saturday night game.
I mean, I was at the NFC Championship.
And nobody has to work the next day because it's a Sunday the next day. Man, let me tell you something. That crowd is going to be a lubricated, loud, insane crowd. Where's my phone? I wonder what the weather is going to be like for Saturday here. Let's get a quick weather check here on my phone, if my phone even goes that far in the future.
I think it's going to be at that time of the game. It's going to be in the 20s.
Yeah, Saturday high is 43, low 29. No weather in the forecast. So it's going to be a cold night. The crowd's going to be lubricated. I mean, I wouldn't want to be the Giants coming into the link this weekend.
I mean, it doesn't get better than this. Like, I love playoff football. Like, this is the best time of the year. Like, I know you and I work retail, but I was saying, like, I actually love this time of the year because it's like it helps business and it's just fun. Like, especially when the Eagles are good. Obviously, it sucks when the Eagles aren't good, but like, we're blessed kind of lately for the most part, to have good Eagles teams.
I mean, I'll be honest. I'm this 8:15 game is right up my alley too, because get done work, be home, watch the whole
game. See it.
But also it kind of pushes the whole narrative that I've been talking about for years now, that I want more Friday night and Saturday night football games, and I think the majority of the world would love it because most average Americans, not us retailers, but most average Americans are off on Sundays. And you watch Sunday night football or Monday night football, you got to work the next day. Saturday night game, everybody's going to be active. Everybody's going to be watching. Everybody's going to be going out because there is no next day for work. So this is right up my alley for what I want football to do more of. I don't want Thursday night football games. Give me Friday night lights. Give me Saturday night delight. Give me whatever you want to call Saturday night. You know, I love it, and I'm super excited that it's an 8:15 Saturday night game. Also, gives the Giants one less day of rest. But you know, that's just my opinion there.
Absolutely. I
Um,
think. I mean, I'm excited because, yeah, being an 8 o'clock game, even if I work evenings, I'd still get to see it.
all right, so the rest of the games this weekend, real quick. I just want to touch on them. Obviously, Jacksonville beat San Diego, L.A. It's got to be questions being brought up in San Diego. Damn, I keep saying San Diego. There's got to be questions being brought up about Staley, their head coach, and Justin Herbert blowing a 27-0 lead there. It's got to be just as much Staley's fault that they lost that game as it's got to be Doug Peterson that they won that game. And that Jacksonville win creates the ultimate student versus teacher, Andy Reid versus Doug Peterson this upcoming weekend. And I think that's going to be a super fun game. I don't know if Jacksonville can keep it close or not against Kansas City, but it's at least storyline-wise a really fun situation that's unfolded there.
Absolutely. I love Andy Reid and I love Doug Peterson. So I think, and it would be cool to see the Jaguars knock off the Chiefs. I mean, that would be, I don't see it happening, but
right.
Listen, any given Sunday, you never know.
Exactly. Then the Baltimore-Cincinnati game, Baltimore lost it. Obviously, Lamar Jackson didn't play. There's going to be question marks there in Baltimore. There's people saying that Lamar Jackson should have played, and they win that game if he played. Some people calling him into question, saying he could have played and he chose not to because of money. That's another city. I mean, it's so great to have, a settled situation in Philadelphia because there's so many cities that there's so much swirling around and question marks. But Cincinnati barely won that game, even going up against Huntley. They're going up against exactly, Kyle. Lamar didn't even travel with his team. He wasn't even at the game. So, I don't know if he's gone. I mean, they might franchise tag him. They've got opportunity to do that. But in my head, I want to say Cincinnati just smokes Buffalo. But in my head, neutral. I think that game's going to be on a neutral field, right? Buffalo, Cincinnati. I don't know how I'll feel about that game specifically. But, Baltimore, shit swirling around again.
Buffalo, Cincinnati is going to be a fun game because you got Joe Burrow versus Josh Allen.
Obviously.
And that's what the AFC does, like, compared to the NFC right now, because there's so much of these upper echelon quarterbacks. Because, look, either team that wins is then going to go on and play Pat Mahomes more than likely. So it'll be Pat Mahomes versus either Joe Burrow or Josh Allen. So it's going to be fun football from here on out. Because think about it. If the Eagles beat the Giants and the Niners beat Dallas, that's going to be an excellent matchup because both teams are like very good. I mean, it's the two best teams in the NFC. And if Dallas wins, it'll be the rivalry. It'll be Eagles down. So no matter what happens, I
think the NFL has lucked out with the potential Final Four. The final championship game matchups next weekend. They've lucked out. Real quick, I mean, I think that San Francisco-Dallas game is a huge matchup. I know it's been a long time, but Dallas-San Francisco has a huge playoff rivalry from the 90s. I mean, early 90s, the Cowboys tended to, get the better of them a few times. Steve Young beat them once. In the late 90s, you had a lot of really close games. I think T.O. caught a big touchdown in the game. Was it a big touchdown or what? I don't know. I remember T.O. being involved in one of those Giants 49ers playoff games. There's a huge rivalry there, and I think the NFL has won out again. I mean, you just look down the line here. Every matchup, every game's played out a way to create. We're going to see huge numbers. We're going to see huge, everything across the board this week.
Oh, I can't wait.
I don't know what this means, but this must be an inside joke between you and Joe Bucci.
Yeah.
Don't even explain. I don't even want to know what happened at the Olive Garden. It sounds like something out of like some TV show sitcom. I don't even want to know.
No, I owe him dinner.
Oh, you owe him dinner. Oh, man. Well, at least he's picking a cheap place like the Olive Garden if you owe him dinner. I would be going to like a fancy Italian restaurant, not Olive Garden.
Well, I have a gift card to Olive Garden, so I'm cheap, and I'm not.
You're cheap. Okay, gotcha. That answers it all right there. I think we're going to wrap it up there. There's not much time to talk Sixers now at this point. No, yeah, exactly. So we're going to wrap it up there. We'll bring Sixers back into the conversation tomorrow. Tomorrow, I definitely want to dive into the theory. I mean, it's happened across the NFL. It shouldn't be a problem, but a lot of coaches that are playing this weekend, including the Eagles, have been sidetracked with interviews at other teams, and whether we think that is a factor, whether depending on how they play, can we criticize them and whatnot. So we'll dive into that as well. I'm sure we'll see more from practice today and more video clips all over social media today. So there'll be plenty to dive into tomorrow about this Eagles-Giants matchup. But again, I just want to stress people, do not focus on the Cowboys or 49ers. We need to focus on the Giants because the Giants are a legit football team. They can beat us any given Sunday. We are a better team. But it does not mean that this is just going to be an easy pushover this week. So let's keep the brakes pumped and just focus on this week, because that's right. As Joe says, go Birds, because that's how it's going to be. For Trending the AM, make sure y'all go back, like, share, follow, retweet on all social media platforms. Like and subscribe on the DSM Media YouTube page. I'd greatly appreciate that. Foot on throat. Boot to ass. I think that was one of the Rock's sayings later in his wrestling career. Boots to asses. All right, that's what I want to see. We're going to wrap it up. For Jason Voorhees, I am Phil Stiefel. We'll be back tomorrow morning, 8:30 a.m. As always, if you subscribe and have the notifications turned on YouTube, you won't miss a second of it. Everybody have a great Tuesday. It is Tuesday. Have a great Tuesday, and go Birds.
And Philadelphia has it.